Hello and welcome to another episode of the Play It On Repeat podcast, the podcast where I go back to some of my favorite albums and review them through the context of my current music tastes. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Dirt by Alice in Chains. This one is the second studio album from the band, and it was put out in 1992. This one was the last album to include all four original members of the band, as Mike Starr, the original bassist, was fired in January of 1993 during the tour for this album. The majority of the songs for the album were written by Jerry Cantrell, but Lane Staley wrote two songs for the album, this being the first time that Lane Staley wrote any songs for the band completely on his own. Dirt received critical acclaim upon release and peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200. It has been certified 5 times platinum by the RIAA, making Dirt the highest selling album to date for the band. The album spawned 5 singles: Wood, Them Bones, Angry Chair, Rooster, and Down in a Hole. All those songs all had music videos as well that played on VH1 and MTV, all that good stuff. Dirt was also nominated for a Grammy for the Best Hard Rock Performance for the music video for Wood. They unfortunately didn't win that Grammy, but they were nominated. With all that being said, I'd say this is probably my favorite album from the band. Though I do have a couple of songs on the album that I'm not familiar with. Overall, love the album. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 before this listen. Let's get into the songs. Song 1, Them Bones. This one was released as the second single for the album, and it peaked at number 24 on the Billboard's mainstream rock chart. This song was written by guitarist Jerry Cantrell, and it's in 7/8 time. Like the time signature 7/8. If you don't play music, what that basically means is it's in a very odd time signature. Like I don't know how to explain it all that well, but it's just laid out kind of odd in the way that it was written. For the most part, they do go into 4/4, which is the typical what you would expect in just like a normal pop song or like a normal rock song for the chorus. When discussing the use of odd time signatures in a 1998 interview with Guitar World, Cantrell said, "I really don't know what that comes from. It just comes naturally to me. I could sit down and figure it out, but what's the use? Off-time stuff is just more exciting to me." This one opens by hitting you straight in the mouth. The first thing you hear in this album is a scream from Staley and a super cool main riff from Cantrell that once again is in that odd time signature, but I love the riff. I love Cantrell's tone as well, his guitar tone. It's so thick and heavy and chunky. It's one of my favorite tones ever. The solo for this one is also another thing that I love about the track. Cantrell is super talented as a writer in all aspects, like lyrically, musically, melodically. But his specifically his melodicness that he gets in his solos is and the feel he brings to those solos is one of my favorite things about his writing. The chorus to this one is also super simple, but it's super catchy at the same time. Lane's voice was truly one of a kind. He's another one of those guys that I wish we could have had for more time and had gotten to hear what else he could have put out had he had more time. But unfortunately, he's one of those guys that we lost young, lost him to addiction, and that's the case in so many rock stars' lives, is that they get addicted to these drugs and it just wears them down, and that's what it did to Lane. And it's really sad. I wish we could have gotten more music from him. And more so than that, I wish he could have had a longer, more fulfilling life, because his story is really sad. If you've never looked into Lane Staley, it's worth looking into. He had a sad existence for the last couple of years, and I really hate it. I really do. But with that being said, this one was 2 minutes and 29 seconds, and it was not long enough, in my opinion. I could have listened to them continue this song for 7 minutes if they wanted to do it. With that being said, it's one of, if not my favorite track from the band, so I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Song 2, Damn That River. Cantrell was inspired to write Damn That River after a fight he had with Sean Kinney, who was the drummer of the band. when Kenny broke a coffee table over his head, which is an insane thing to say, but apparently that's what inspired this song. This one opens with a snare hit from the drums and a really cool chuggy riff from Cantrell. We get some leads from Cantrell as well early on into this one. I think it's kind of funny how this song is just kind of like the thoughts that you have after you have an argument with somebody or after you have a fight with somebody. Like you'll be in the shower thinking about, man, I should have said this, or man, I should have done this. But he just went and wrote a song about it. And he made that drummer perform the song that he wrote about him. I think that's pretty funny. I love how heavy this one is. It's really aggressive. It's one of those songs that's just like a wall of sound the entire time, and especially in the chorus. It ends on the band hitting a big chord, and the song just shuts off. This one was 3 minutes and 9 seconds, and it was a really fun one that I can't remember if I'd heard to this point. It's definitely going to go on my playlist after this, regardless. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Song 3, Rain When I Die. The lyrics to this one were written by Cantrell and Staley together about their respective girlfriends at the time. That's really the only information I can find for it online. There's not a lot about this song written online or hasn't been asked about in interviews or anything like that. This one opens with a really beefy bass riff, and as I've said on this channel before, I'm an absolute sucker for a good bass line and a good bass tone, and this song definitely has that. It also opens with these really like atmospheric leads from Jerry Cantrell. Soon the main riff starts, and it's a cool riff that is introduced with a ton of like wah pedal effect, and the guitar goes away while Stanley kind of delivers his lines, or the wah on the guitar does anyway. And each time he isn't singing, that wah effect comes back. I'm a big fan of the riff as well, just in general. The song ends on about a minute of more cool, like atmospheric stuff similar to what was going on in the intro, and then it just fades out. But it fades back in soon after it fades out, and it just kind of builds and builds and gets louder and louder until it feels like it's going to burst your eardrums from, because I was listening in headphones. It feels like it's going to burst your eardrums or burst your speakers, then it just cuts off. It's a really weird ending. But this one was 6 minutes and 1 second, and it's another cool one. I don't think it's quite as much like on the same level as the first two songs we've done to this point, but it's still a really good song. If you do listen to this one, though, I'll give you some advice. Either listen to it with some really good headphones or listen to it in a car with a good speaker system, because all that atmospheric stuff that they do, I feel like you don't get the full like range of that if you're just listening to it over like a phone speaker or something like that. And if you use a good setup, you'll love this song a lot more than if you just listen to it just normally on your phone. I'm going to say this one's an 8 out of 10 for me. Song 4, Down in a Hole. This one, strangely enough, bounces around the album based on where you got the album. On the original pressing, it was the 12th song on the album, but in some pressings it was the 11th, and on streaming services such as Spotify, which is what I use, it falls 4th. I can't really find a reasoning for that. It's just kind of how it is. And a lot of the songs on this album bounce around based on whenever the album was pressed or like where you get it at. It's really strange, but that is a thing with this album for whatever reason. Jerry Cantrell was at first hesitant to present this song to the band, feeling that the song was too soft. It's kind of like a power ballad type of a song. But after the positive response from the band, they followed through and recorded it. Jerry Cantrell wrote the song about his then girlfriend, Courtney Clark. This is the first song on the album to open with cleaner guitars. Soon we hear a harmonized lead part from Cantrell, and Lane begins singing immediately after that. The instrumentals and Stanley's vocal delivery get harsher and more distorted with the chorus, and we stay in that kind of a pocket for a while before returning to the cleaner sound. The song goes out on a chorus followed by a small lead guitar part by Cantrell. He holds a note and just lets it ring out until it slowly fades out. This one was 5 minutes and 38 seconds, and it's another one of my favorites from the band. It just feels so powerful, like meaningful, I guess you would say. I don't know a better way to describe it than that. This one's a 9 out of 10 for me. Song 5, Sick Man. Sick Man came together after Staley asked Cantrell to write him the sickest tune, the sickest, darkest, most effed up, and heaviest thing he could write. It opens with an almost tribal feeling like a drum beat, and then quickly another super heavy guitar riff starts. The song kind of cycles through riffs the whole time. It's like anywhere from 3 to 5 riffs that are kind of just in cycle this whole song. The song does go through a part where it completely cleans up in the middle. Granted, that doesn't last very long before we return to one of the 4 or 5 riffs that we've had throughout the song. We went out on a chorus on this one. This one was 5 minutes and 29 seconds, and to be honest, in the middle of this one, I had to pause the song to look up a review to see if I was weird for not enjoying it. And it seems to be a super polarizing song. Like, you either love it or you hate it. And I fell more over here on this side. It was too all over the place for me. It's a 6 out of 10. It's a rare miss from the band. Song 6, Rooster. The song was written by guitarist Jerry Cantrell for his father, whose childhood nickname is Rooster. His dad served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. Cantrell would later name his music publishing company Rooster Sun Publishing. So, that means that, his dad was a really big deal in his life. And as somebody whose dad is kind of like the person that they're closest to, outside of my wife anyway, that means, like, I like Jerry Cantrell because of that. But this one opens with another clean guitar part and another really simple but cool bass line. The bass line's kind of at the top of the mix, like even higher than the guitars. This song may also be my favorite song for Lane vocally. Also, the harmonies of Cantrell and Staley are always amazing, but in this song particularly so. Those two guys, their two voices turn into one, and it's an amazing thing to hear. A super heavy guitar part comes in for the chorus, and Staley also delivered his vocals more harsh and more distorted during the chorus as well. And the story for this one is really powerful, as it tells the story of how his dad made the choice to serve, and how he lost a buddy, and how he wasn't really respected when he came back. And that's a story that those vets of the Vietnam War had, like all of them. I know my papa has a similar story. I want to say he flew back to the States into San Diego. And when they touched down, they got out of the plane to an airport full of protesters, similarly to what was described in this song. This one was 6 minutes and 14 seconds, and it's another close to perfect song from the band. It's right up there with Them Bones for me, so I'm also going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Song 7, Junkhead. The lyrics of this song represent some of the side effects of drug use. I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but I found an article claiming that Dirt was originally meant to be like a concept album, where each song was meant to be a different stage of drug addiction. And this one was meant to be in the original version of the album, and it was meant to represent the peak before the downfall of becoming a full-blown addict. Like, you're getting high but you're still functioning type of deal. And it starts with another scream from Staley and a super slow, chuggy, heavy guitar riff that almost feels like Black Sabbath to me. I really enjoy the chorus of this one. Once again, it has a really cool lead part in it as well, where Cantrell is kind of harmonizing guitar with himself that lasts a few seconds before returning to the main riff. The song goes out on a chorus. This one was 5 minutes and 9 seconds. It's another solid one, and I do like the way that they went about attempting to kind of explain the brain of an addict. It was really interesting. I think it's on a similar level to Rain When I Die for me, so it's going to be an 8 out of 10 as well. Song 8, The Dirt. Discussing the title track Dirt, Cantrell said that the words Lane put to it were so heavy, I've never given him something and not thought it was going to be the most awesome thing I've ever heard. Staley said he wrote the song to a certain person who basically buried him. This one starts with a really weird, super affected guitar riff that Staley matches with his voice. Once again, this is one with really good harmonies between the two um, in their vocals in the chorus. It also has another good solo. Once again, not a super complicated one, but it's exactly what the song needed. This song goes out on Cantrell playing the same part from the intro and Staley following along with his voice once again. This one is 5 minutes and 16 seconds, and it's another super cool one. Not quite up there, in my opinion, with the best songs on the album, but still super solid. I'll say it's an 8.5 out of 10. Song 9, Godsmack. This song is about someone who has let themselves get to the point in which heroin is their everything. It starts with a super lightly distorted palm muted guitar riff. Staley's voice in this one is super strange. I'm not sure if it's an effect added to it or if he's actually like super overusing vibrato in the verses, but I'm not a fan. In the chorus, the guitar gets kind of weird, and it's another case of heavy wah use during the riff. They kind of stop doing the affected vocals in the back half of the song, and I think that really saves it from being just awful, in my opinion. This is another one that goes out on a chorus. This one was 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and it's another one that I was just not a fan of. I did not enjoy the vocals with all the heavy effects in the first half of the song. Like I said, they did save it a little bit by dropping that for the second half of the song. With that being said, I liked it a touch more than Sick Man, but just a touch, so it's going to be a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Song 10, Untitled. The 45-second Iron Gland, as it was originally referred to, was developed out of a guitar riff that Cantrell would play that annoyed the other band members. So he created the song, adding a reference to Black Sabbath's Iron Man, and promised to never play the guitar riff ever again. It features Tom Araya of Slayer on vocals, as well as Lane Staley. Like I said, it was 43 seconds, so I don't really have any notes on it necessarily. It was just kind of Cantrell screwing around. I do think it was cool that they got Tom Araya to do something for it. He just kind of screamed the whole time. But that being said, I don't think I'm going to give it an out of 10 score, seeing as it was never meant to be something serious. Like similarly to when I did Quiet Riot's Mental Health, Battle Axe was presented seriously, and this was not. It was never meant to be anything but kind of a joke by Jerry Cantrell, so I'm not going to give it a score out of 10. Song 11, Hate to Feel. This is one of the two songs on the album written entirely by Lane Staley. Staley also played guitar on this one and the second one he wrote. Cantrell is quoted as saying he was proud of him for his development as a songwriter at this time because these two tracks were so good and he did them all by himself. This one starts with the super cool, slowly descending guitar riff. It's another riff that I hear some Black Sabbath inspiration from, similar to the one that we talked about earlier. The song switches up after about 45 seconds and a new heavier, chunkier, chuggier riff comes in. The original riff does come back at the end of the first verse, and they kind of switch between the two riffs. The slower one being used for the first half of the verses and the heavier one being used for the back half and the chorus. The song ends on the band all hitting a bunch of chords repeatedly, and they just stop all at once. This one was 5 minutes and 16 seconds, and it's a super good first song for Staley to have written entirely by himself. You can definitely tell it was written by somebody different than the rest of the album, but that is in no way a bad thing. This was 100% Lane's voice and his expression, and I was a big fan of that. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Song 12, Angry Chair. This is the second song written completely by Staley for the album. Jerry Cantrell said of the song, it's such a brilliant song. I'm very proud of Lane for writing it. When I've stepped up vocally in the past, he's been so supportive, and here was a fine example of him stepping up with the guitar and writing a masterpiece. This one opens with a drum beat and a cool, clean guitar part. Staley begins singing soon after that. I really like the way that Staley structured this song. It flows very well from part to part. This song kind of grew on me more and more. Like, I already liked it at the beginning of the song, but it just got even better as the song went on, in my opinion. Um, the song ends on just about 30 seconds of the drummer getting a second to shine with a little bit of a part. It wasn't necessarily like a drum solo, but he got to do a little cool drum part for about 30 seconds, which I also like. I feel like all band members should get their time on the album, and he got his time at the end of this song. This one was 4 minutes and 47 seconds, and it was the better of the two songs written by Staley, in my opinion. And I honestly think it's one of the best from the album, period. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Song 13, Wood. Wood was written by Cantrell as a tribute to his friend and late lead singer of Mother Love Bone, Andrew Wood, who died of a drug overdose in 1990. Cantrell said that the song is also directed toward people who pass judgments for situations like that. The song opens with an absolutely iconic bass line and an awesome drum beat. That bass line, it's just, once again, so thick and heavy, and it's wonderful. Love that bass line. We get some cleanish chords from Jerry, as some more tame vocals from Staley as well. Before we get into the chorus, where the guitar and Lane both crank up to 10 in the blink of an eye, like in a snap. We keep that structure throughout the song. The song is also one that has a really cool solo from Cantrell, even though it's, once again, overall very simple. But it's one that is one of my absolute favorites from him. Like I said, the song is very strict in staying with its structure, so there aren't a ton of changes happening here, but I love it for that in this case. A lot of times a song can get samey, but this song never felt that way, in my opinion, even though they stayed to the same structure throughout the whole thing. The song ends on Lane giving an epic outro for the album in the way that he delivers his last line. This one was 3 minutes and 26 seconds, and it was another one of the band's best. Another one that you would put on the band's greatest hits album 10 times out of 10. Like, if you make a greatest hits album for Alice in Chains, this is going to be on there. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's the absolute best song they could have ever chosen for the outro of this album as well. I feel like they chose like the perfect intro to the album and the perfect outro to the album. They did really amazingly choosing the two songs to both begin and end the album. It's in the upper echelon along with Them Bones and Rooster for me, so I'll also give it a 9.5 out of 10. With that all being added up and averaged out, we came out to an 8.3 out of 10. Just below the score I gave the album before this listen. The two songs on the album that scored in the sixes just really killed the album's rating. Had it not been for those, it probably would have been closer to a 9 overall, and it would have been probably pretty close to Injustice for All as far as rating, had it not been for those two songs that were sixes, in my opinion. All in all, Alice in Chains is my favorite of the grunge bands from the 90s, and this listen just further solidified that thought for me. My favorite thing about the band is the vocal harmonies we get from Staley and Cantrell that we talked about earlier. Their two voices were just kind of meant to go together. It's like they were singing soulmates, and it's just something that it's one of the things that the band is the most famous for, and for good reason. With that being said, we're done here, and I just have to say thank you again for watching. And please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Share with a friend if you're on Spotify if you enjoyed. Also, if you haven't followed my TikTok account, if you just look up Play It On Repeat Podcast on TikTok, it should show up. I'm thinking about adding a segment toward the end of the podcast where I read some comments from my TikTok followers because I post videos where I ask questions to people about opinions on metal music and stuff like that, and I'd love to read some of my favorite comments for that. for the podcast, and just give it a what is it called on TikTok? Follow. Give it a follow. With that all being said, thanks. Bye.